trucking on. I'm trucking on. Move her on down the line. Another town will do me fine. I'm trucking on. I'm trucking on.
Patrick Freer.
Ward Richmond.
Welcome to Truckin' On.
Wow, thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you here, brother.
Yeah, I've been following this progression and the growth of this podcast and was hoping one day you'd ask, and here we are. Feel honored.
At our 25-year college reunion.
Wow. That means we've known each other for 29 years?
Yeah.
28 years?
30.
Something like that? 30? I don't know.
You're better at school than I am, but barely.
I don't know about that. I did order my transcript and all this reunion stuff, and I'm pretty damn good at Russian literature. Engineering,
I never took Russian lit, but that was...
I didn't either, but I got 3 A's in it.
You enrolled in it.
I did. I
didn't even
sign up for the class.
It was just like a joke class.
I would like to believe I listened in some of them, and it was interesting parts of it. But yeah, if you chose, the one beautiful thing about Brown is you can choose your path, right? You can
no core curriculum.
Yeah, you can literally be whatever you want to be and do whatever you want to do. And my learning was not necessarily in the classroom. It was more outside of the classroom and learning from you and the rest of the guys and friends and all that kind of stuff, and really exploring all the things that Brown had to offer non-academically.
Same.
Yeah.
For sure. The one thing I learned here is how to write. And I failed my first paper in my first English class when I arrived freshman year. And I got a no credit on it.
Wow.
And the professor, mandatory, said, if you want to stay in this class, you need to go meet with the dean. So I had to go meet with the dean, and they gave me a writing tutor right out of the gates. And I had to meet with the writing tutor multiple times a week for the whole first semester. And I don't remember her name. I wish I did, but she really taught me how to write. And that is as far as school stuff goes, that's something that then I learned, and then I could write papers. Excuse me. I could write papers overnight, like a 40-page paper, and I learned the art of doing that and how to explain things in a concise manner and use punctuation properly and things that I didn't really learn in high school.
Well, one thing I love about you, Ward, is when you set your mind to something, you just crush it. Your ability to say, I'm going to run an Ironman, and then tomorrow you're running a marathon, you're doing the 100-mile bike, and you swam 2 miles. I don't know how you do it. That mind hurdle, once I know how to do this, and you just do it. And that's impressive. So relative to the writing piece, I can totally see you. Our ability to procrastinate was pretty good. Yeah. But your ability to crank shit out was impressive.
Yeah, last minute crank things out. But yeah, the procrastination was definitely there all through college.
Well, funny, we're obviously destined to be together because funny, your story there. My first paper I wrote in my CAP class, which was medieval studies, was a 2-page paper about myself. And I wrote it, and it came back, you do not know how to write. You need to go to the writing fellows.
Shut up.
I swear to God.
I did not know that.
You can ask, anybody that in my family knows the story. Because,
the writing fellows, that's what it was.
Yeah, you need to go see the writing fellows and learn how to write. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I know how to write. I was 4th in my class. I'm at Brown. And so I went back to the dorm, and I was laughing. Look, this guy said, I don't know how to write. And they read it, and they all started laughing at me, but in a good way. And I just remember Nicola, who looked at the paper, and she said, Patrick, you need to connect the paragraphs with words like although, however.
Yes.
I'm like, what?
Semicolons.
Very basic stuff that somehow in our public school failed to deliver, even in an honors class. And but that's really funny that you had the same experience. And I can't say that writing is not a skill of mine. I think that ultimately the learning of being able to connect paragraphs was probably the only thing that came out of the writing fellows for me. And I just struggled with, someone said you had a 20-page paper. Well, if I go back to second grade, my mom tells a story. I had to write a paper about something, and whatever it says, you had to have so many things. I don't really remember the details of what the task was, but I wrote, I like fishing. I like it very, 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 very much to get to the number of words I was requested to do or something. And yep, that was me.
That is exactly what I did on my first paper at Brown. And when he told me to go to the professor, I just handed in the paper. I triple spaced it. It had to be 5 pages about the class was literature of the American South. And so we read something and had to write about 5 pages about it first week of school.
Well, I married an English teacher, English major.
Right. Willa.
Yeah, and her whole family were English people, and thank God, because my kids would be suffering horribly right
teaching
now.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, well, one, they wouldn't be taught because I wouldn't know how to do it, and they read it's, you got to pry books away from them. And my son, who... He's 11, but in fourth grade, he did a spelling bee and, never practiced anything like that. And he ended up getting fourth place and moving on to the whatever thing. And I'm just like, holy crap, he did that not because he practiced, but because he read so much, just knowing words and seeing them. And that's 110% has to do with Willa, not with me. That's not where I play in the world of parenting.
Yeah. Me neither. Someone here at the reunion was asking me how my kids are doing and everything. And I tell my kids, I hope you do great at school, and everything, and sports and whatever you're interested in. But the number one thing I care about is that you are kind and be kind human beings. And I heard that from my yoga instructor the week before school one time. And after I heard that, I was like, I love hearing this. And it's so true because you know how mean kids and adults can be. But just I ingrain it in them. And even they just finished up their first grade and fifth grade. And and they won awards and they did good in school and everything. Okay, they're not like the valedictorians. They're not having books away from them. I pry iPads away.
Well, that too.
I pry TikTok and video games away from them. But they are kind, and I know that deep down, and that is so beautiful. And I'll leave all the education stuff up to the people that do that for a living. I try to help Betty with spelling, and oh my God, well, this is so stupid because everything spells for you anyway. And then they're not even gonna have to type when they're our age. Technology is going somewhere this. And also the spelling of words in the English language is absolutely ridiculous and makes zero sense. And so I never thought about it until I was trying to teach her, and I was just sorry, this is bullshit. You're never going to have to use this when you get old anyway. Yeah. And I still don't. I just it underlines it, and then you click on it, and then it spells it right. That's how you spell.
Right. Yeah. And, I think being married to an English teacher or an English major or someone who's mastered the art of words, it's amazing when you read something from someone who knows words and knows how to put them together to express opinions or a thought or an emotion. Yeah. And, when that's obviously what Will is really good at, helping us all like be better at communicating in the words that are chosen, and how, the more you explore that makes you appreciate some of the, like when they talk about English books and like, master authors or whatever they are, what makes a good book. And, the story or the plot can be good, but when you really dig into it and you see how they combine these words together to express something perfectly, it's an art form. And that art form is getting lost, in AI or whatever that may be. And you say, hey, write something that looks like this, sounds like this, and it spits something out. And it is a little, scary to think, like, what does that look like, for the people taking over from us, down the road of what are we going to be reading and who is going to be coming up with that information.
Yeah. And I will say that I consider myself to be a really good writer, but not in the traditional sense. Like, I have a simple vocabulary, but I've been told, which I like to hear, I mean, I just know it, like, I'm really good at writing in a way that if you read it, and it's like Ward wrote that. You know what I mean? Like, I can kind of put my personality on there, because I do lots of posts on LinkedIn and do things like that. And currently AI posts for my podcast reels, and I just am doing one every day. I don't have time to do it. But if I go put a post on LinkedIn and write something that's normally happening, it's just way more sporadically now. But I had initially, when I started really hammering LinkedIn for marketing, I hired someone to post on LinkedIn for me, and I couldn't, I was like, that does not sound anything like me.
It's hard to subcontract that. Yeah. Because your voice is your voice, right? And so difficult to replicate by anybody else but yourself.
And the podcast is different, and I don't care so much that AI is writing the captions, because it's a video of me speaking. Yeah. So, I don't need to do double work. Right. So let's go back in time after you wrote that first paper for your mom. I like to start ages 12 to 22 and tell me what life was like.
Awesome. Well, I led a pretty great childhood. I had both parents in the house. My mom was home. My dad, didn't work normal hours. At least it felt normal. I probably 8 to 6 or something like that. We lived in a small farm house with a couple acres. We had a barn and a tennis court. And we did a lot of sports. So we played a lot: basketball, tennis, golf, things like that. And our family traveled. My mom instilled in me the joy and of exploration. And every summer we went on a big trip somewhere, get ourselves out of Pennsylvania and go see the world.
Where are some places that you guys would go?
Oh man, in 12. So 12, I would have been the 7th grade or something like that. And I had broken my leg the last day of summer playing pickleball or rundown or whatever you want to call it. And we had planned a 3-week trip to Europe. So we did Amsterdam, Vienna, and Paris. And I had a broken leg during that whole time. And
wow.
I do remember that. But I don't remember being hobbled by it. But I just remember the trip itself. And I historically, I have been entrepreneurial, or in the sense of understanding money, and I like money. That in those trips, our parents would give us a little bit of money, and I would buy food. And go to these little markets, and I'd buy like ham and cheese and bread, and like have this little stash. And being a middle child, I would sit in the middle. So we rented a small car in this European trip. And then it was tight, and we kind of drove around. But my memory and the stories that come from that are that I would then, Peter and Jenny, my brother and sister, would get hungry, and we'd barter. I would be trading up for other things with the food that I had bought. But being able to see the world outside of Lebanon was, it really did open up things. And so we did that trip. We did Australia, New Zealand.
Wow. I don't think I remember this.
Yeah, we did Australia, New Zealand a couple years. That was in high school. That was a wonderful trip. Obviously, I did 2 weeks in Australia and a week in New Zealand. And where else did we go? My grandfather would take us to Bermuda every summer at the end of school. He was one of those just really appreciated high quality things and would stay in a nice hotel, and we would have dinner all together, very formal, and grew up going to the country club. And
through your childhood, your whole family would have dinner together each night?
No, this was on the Bermuda trip. My grandfather, would do that. My mom was not well for a lot of my childhood. She suffered breast cancer when I was very little. I managed to survive, and in all of that, the experimental drugs and things like that they were helping to keep her alive, really made a toll on her body, and that was hard for her to be able to keep up with all of us. And my sister's a year younger, brother 2 years older, and we all played 3 sports and did everything after school, and it was wild. I don't really remember being home much in high school.
Just going.
Yeah, and
I was the same way.
Yeah, and my mom did her best to keep up with us, and he's just again thinking about expectations of today and family and what it was back then. And we would take the activity bus home and grab the payphone, and you'd have to wait a while, depending on where people were, and there's some growth in that, right? To understand safety and security, and knowing you have to be somewhat resourceful, to know hey, you got to find your way home, kind of thing. And that's good. As a middle child, there's a lot that comes from that. And one thing is you sort of have to do things yourself. And so when you look at that time between 12 and 20, well, if I go up to college, you
went to Brown.
Yep.
How did you decide? And when you were in high school, you were really into fishing, I know, and still are. Did you have a sport that you were really into, or did you do anything else besides? Were you student government?
I was
Class president.
No, I was president of student council.
Okay.
I was in student council mostly. I was an officer 2 or 3 years, but was the treasurer. And if we look at sport wise, when I was younger, I wanted to be an NBA guy. So I played a lot of basketball up until middle school. I did play in high school, but then got cut, which was the best thing that ever happened for me. I played golf all 4 years in college or in high school, and I played a little bit of tennis, but never was really good at it. My brother was really good, but it was all good stuff because you could pretty much do that anywhere. In all the non-school related things, I would fish. I fished all the time, and once I got my license, I could drive and do that.
When did that start, that passion?
That was when I could hold a fishing rod.
Yeah, it was just natural. Yeah. You were always drawn to it.
That's it. Yep, that's the thing that really, being in the zone, whatever, that feeling is when time just sort of vanishes and you sort of wake up and it's 3 or 4 hours later and there you are. You're like, oh man, I got to go or something. And that's what fishing is for me. And it, the nice thing about that is I don't need anything else to help with that feeling. I don't need another person. It's nice to have other people to fish with, but it's not necessary. So it's very meditative, so to speak.
Yeah. It is meditation.
Yeah. And
for you, not for me.
Right. For me.
Yeah,
for many people. And there's different versions of it, right? For me, it's fly fishing. I like to be an active fisherman, not sitting around watching something wait to happen. But there's a lot of things going on, the wind, the water flow, the drift, the idea of hope. I hope this works. I hope the weather's good. I hope all this stuff. And, fishermen are idealistic hopers and, hoping things will work out. And
it's cool too, because I think it's hope, but also process and discipline and practice. And if you're going to go you're going to up your odds of success if you're using good form and doing the things you need to be doing, right?
Yeah. When you think about any sport, confidence, if you don't think you're going to do something, you're less likely to do it, right? Like if someone says to you, hey, this is going to taste bad, it's really hard for it to taste good. And same thing, if this is going to hurt, it's probably going to hurt than rather not hurt. Yeah. And confidence in many sports is if you're going to make this shot and you believe it, there's more, all the studies show your mind will be more likely to make the shot. And fishing is one of those sports where one of those things where I'm ultra confident in. And that just comes from the experience and understanding determination and persistence and hope, and belief that this is going to work, and understanding if it's not, then what, and adjusting and altering and changing till it does. And that I'm able to do that with fishing, and I'm not able, like one reason basketball, I ended up not doing well in basketball because I just got scared, in the court, losing the ball, missing a shot, not doing what I was supposed to do, and that, shows up at some point. And, golf is one of those sports too, like a mental mind game. And now that, it's like when I play golf, I'd much rather play with 3 other people in a cart, drink a couple beers, because if I play by myself, I just get angry, just get mad. I'm like, shoot, I should have hit that, or, oh man, I hit in the trees. And I'm like, why am I going to yell at myself for 4 hours?
Yeah.
Like that's no fun.
I just quit golf because I was the same way.
Yeah.
And I quit fishing.
Yeah.
Because I would just get lines tangled and it just didn't click.
Yeah.
And I do those other things like you're talking about Ironman, that comes pretty easy to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm built like, I don't know, mentally, I'm not like physically built to be a Ironman triathlete.
Yeah.
Built to be a football player. God.
Well, you find that like,
gosh,
no problem. Like the idea, so, people who are endurance athletes, I have high respect for.
And that's meditative for me too. Like that.
Yeah.
I think I knew it when I was doing it, but yeah, it's just like you go lock in and you're just.
Yeah. Willa calls it the pain cave, you enter the pain cave and you're able to manage that, and I'm like, don't even get me close to that thing because I'm scared of it. And so to watch endurance athletes be able to do that stuff, I mean, that's just special mind power. Because we're all capable of it. It's not like our bodies can do it. It's really just, getting the mind to believe in it and know that failure happens and that's okay. And to move on from that. But trying to the idea, like if I want to run a marathon, I'm like, one, why, who am I what am I trying to prove? But other than to myself, like I can mentally do it. And I don't know what most runners believe, but I want to believe that most runners think that who want to run, like they can challenge their body in that way to actually succeed.
Yeah, I think there's part of that. And then it's also really enjoyable for people that do it because of the endorphins.
Yeah. Yeah, get that runner's high.
Yeah, the runner's high is a real thing. I mean, the high you get after an Ironman, I've told many people this, when you cross the finish line, you have runner's high for the week after.
Oh, wow.
And it is euphoric, and you feel invincible. The race is the Pain Cave 5,000. And, I mean, it's brutal. But, gosh, when you cross that finish line, it feels so good. And then you just ride that high. And it's like few things I've ever experienced in my life.
Well, when I, getting back to high school, so I did those sports, but when I wasn't, so golf was only one I did all 4 years. And after that, or when I wasn't, so it was winter and spring, I would then work every day after school. So
Where?
At a daycare center.
Okay.
So I worked in the 2-year-old room. I would get off school, be in the 2-year-old room at 3:00, open a door, and a bunch of 10 2-year-olds would come running at me, tackle me, we'd play and do whatever, and then just hang out. and I would leave at 6. But it was a nice, I love kids, but it was a nice break from high school. High school was a little tough. There was a little bit of bullying going on, like with some of my friends. And
You got bullied?
yeah, in a, like, hey, we're going to be over here, and I'd go there and they weren't there, that kind of stuff. Just stuff that it wasn't like you're this or any kind of like physical type bullying, but just really struggled in feeling like I was being left out, like they didn't want me around or something to that effect. And
When was this, in high school?
Yeah, it was like junior and senior year. And so that led to...
That's why God sent me to you.
Yes, many different reasons. But yeah, so when it came time for college, that's, I didn't want to be anywhere near town. And, my brother went to Brown, so I had a chance to go visit him once. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And I got in, which I couldn't believe. I applied early, got deferred, so I thought I wasn't going in. Actually thought I was going to go to Boston College because the big envelope didn't come till like super late. It was like end of April, and by then I was like, I guess we're going to Boston College, which is great anyways,
Were you so excited?
Oh, my mom called me out of school. She went to the school. She called like, Pat Freer, please report to the office. And I get to the office. She's got this big envelope. She's like, oh my God, like a big envelope for Brown. And then we got in the car and we opened it up, and there it was, like, welcome, class 2000. And yeah, it was a great moment for us.
I get chills. I think it's partially being here in Providence for our 25-year reunion. But yeah, getting that acceptance letter. I knew I was getting in because the football coach told me. Mm-hmm. They write you something called a likely letter. It's like you were likely to be admitted to Brown University. So I got that, but it still wasn't 100%.
Yeah,
There's still a chance. And then you get the package, and it's like, oh my gosh, how is this happening for me? I was like, I made an 1170 on the SAT.
Yeah. I was 1280, so I wasn't that much better. Yeah, we both couldn't write.
B's and I couldn't write, and making B's and C's at Woodrow, taking non-honors classes.
Ward, you're unique in your way, and what I find, when I first met you, I was like, oh man, there's a big dude, and like, can't wait to go to a bar and get in a fight, and he's got my back. But you're just a giant teddy bear, when it comes to that stuff. And
not a fighter.
Not a fighter. And I got to remind myself, I went to Brown. Sometimes I can feel stupid or, not as smart as other people. And, the common theme is, we are smart in our own way, and what we brought to the table. And what I said earlier, how we started about, my learning wasn't statistics or econ 101, like it was outside the classroom, learning from all of you and taking pieces of that to help me become a better person and be open-minded and try to see the good in everybody and everything. And it was, the getting here, the first day they're like, welcome class of 2000. There are, how many, there was 1,500. Yeah. So 750 of you are valedictorians. The average score on the SAT is 1550 and blah, 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 blah. And I'm looking around like, ooh, how the hell did I get? Because I wasn't a sport guy. It's not like I got in because of sports. But I do, looking back, I'm like, okay, I did provide, I want to believe I provided some unique perspective for a lot of people. And I want to believe like fly fishing was one of those things, got me in, that made me a little different. I participated in many, many things outside of the classroom, which is also an important part of your college experience.
Yeah, I did that as well.
Yeah.
That was the bulk of my resume was the extracurriculars I excelled at.
Yeah. Yeah. Participating, helping, being part of the community, giving back, engaging. If we all just got lost in the classroom, it'd be pretty boring.
Yeah, for sure. So how was it when you showed up? How did that go for you? Did you love it?
Well, my brother was here, so there was safety. I wasn't at all nervous. I thrive in places like, or going into a new setting and meeting new people. I love that. I love getting to know people and being vulnerable and learning and listening. And so for me, I was in Hope College right there, and it was an environmental dorm. So most of the people there were similar minded in terms of their career path or whatever, that would be. But man, there were some people in there that got stuck in that thing that had no business being in that dorm if it was in fact an environmental dorm. And that was great. Like the idea of like meeting all these people from all over the place, and they were laughing at themselves like, how am I in this place, in this dorm? So it was great because
what is environmental dorm? I don't even know what that is.
There was, it's like 60 people. I don't know how many people in Hope College, but it was meant to be a lot of people who indicated that they were going to be an environmental major of some sort, science or studies. They kind of put together. And that dorm, there was no co-ed bathroom on each floor. So the first semester was like girls on the first floor and third floor, and then guys second and fourth, and then the next semester would switch. And there was like, if you yellow, let it mellow, number 2, flush it down. If it's brown, flush it down. And that was kind of, whether or not people followed it, who knows? But there was a lot of truth in, when you got to know everybody, a lot of people were in the same classes together.
Yeah.
And that was good. But, it doesn't take long to gravitate to people like you or people you're attracted to. So like,
how attracted to me are you?
Well, like the funny thing of, we had those 3 or 4 days before school started, orientation or whatever, and the RAs, and they're talking about sex and, and drinking and all that. And you end up getting paired, they didn't count like A, B, C, D, A, B, C, you sort of like found your people.
Yeah.
And I remember the conversation, like for me, obviously Lebanon and our conservative, and there are things there. My parents were not conservative at all, very liberal, but there was a conversation, about when does no mean no, right? The idea of sex and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then they have condoms on the door, and I'm like, this is,
because we had like sexual orientation seminars.
Yeah, like this is how you use a dental dam. I'm like, Jesus, this place is crazy, and fun.
Did you ever use a dental dam?
No.
A dental dam, for those that don't know, because I've never heard of it except for at freshman orientation, and it's like a rubber Kleenex that you put over the vagina before you go down on a girl to prevent STDs.
Yeah.
And I've never used one.
Nope.
And never heard of it since then.
Yeah.
Except for my friends from Brown talking about it.
I think I brought one home and showed my friends too. Like, guys, look at this thing.
The dental dams.
But we were there, so in our group, and the question was, you had to write down as a group, like, okay, guys, like what, when does no mean no? And when does yes mean yes? And so it was like, go back to your group, write it on this paper, and then we'll share it as a group. And I just remember I won't name names, but the one person who I became good friends with, she was like, I think yes means take me like the whore I am. And I was like, we're going to be good friends. We're going to be good friends.
Yeah. So you were attracted to the kind of the wilder.
Yeah. Like the misfit toys. Everywhere I go, I find myself with the misfit toys. Here I am sitting with the biggest misfit toy of them all.
That's right.
Yeah. But, in a big, lovely way, and that's the thing, like people who are kind and caring, but like to have fun and, are nice and, willing to take chances and, share an enthusiasm. Like I feel like, if we talk about like what, again, Brown and what I bring to the table that other than academics, there's some enthusiasm there, some, inspiration, just, hey, come on, we can do this. Let's go, guys. Come on, let's have some fun, or let's go try this. Like the idea of not having roadblocks in much of what I think about. And so when you're in that, there we are, and you're surrounded by others that are willing to take those chances or come along for the ride, and then also not be afraid to tell you, like, hey, you need to slow down a little bit, or let's just, we'll take a break. And so some of those friends I met freshman year were pretty longtime friends. In fact, Craig Powell, he was like the second person I met. We both responded to an ad to help somebody move, a graduate student or somebody graduated in computer science. He would need to go to Boston, so he had one of those things where you pull the tab and the phone number on there. So we called, and Craig and I show up. And we watched this guy pack for like 10 hours, he wasn't ready. And then we put all the stuff in the back of a U-Haul, and then we drove it to Boston. No phones, no map. We had like a printed map, and we got so lost. But it was one of the funnier things. And obviously Craig and I have been friends ever since. And
Craig Powell, Truckin on podcast guest, by the way.
Yeah. And ended up joining the fraternity later on. But we intermingled in undergraduate council students and other stuff.
I didn't know that story. That's funny.
Yeah. So he was like the second person I met. And so then going forward, I also had my brother's friends who were all, my brother and I were very different when it came to school. He was more into the school, the academic side of things, and supported my craziness, was always very patient with me. And so it was great because I felt like home. I had my brother, who's my best friend, and he's always there. And that takes a level of things off. And, I was able to really be free and explore and do all that kind of stuff. And Brown's the place to do that.
Yeah.
And thank God I got to meet, you and the rest of the guys in our class.
And then we all did Rush in the second semester, and that's where we met. And then, I didn't know anyone that was rushing Sigma Chi. Eric Kroll called on me and got me to go to a Rush event, but I didn't know a single person there. And my Brown experience was very different. Like, I got here, I felt far away from home. I didn't know anyone. I met football players, but then I got injured and quit the team and all of that. And I was ready to go home, and my mom told me to go back. Like,
good job, Marion.
One more semester.
Yeah.
And I did. And I came back with just like enthusiasm and optimism. Like, I approach most things that I have to go do, like, whatever, I'll fucking do it and like make the best of it. And okay, I'll go to the Rush event, even though I said no all first semester, and walked in. And then, man, what a special group that was.
Oh, yeah.
And we're all here. We all had dinner last night. We've all been hanging out. And we've kept in touch for 30 years.
Yeah. And connected to the school, feel much more connection to the school itself as a result of that. And it's, sometimes too, joking, how did I get in? And then how did I not get kicked out? Or how did I survive? Right? And then to look back, here we are 25 years later, and we're all doing quite well.
Yeah.
We all have our problems, dealing with life, I'm sure we'll talk about, but the reality of the self ability to get through life or whatever that may be, and have each other to walk through some of those times when we're struggling, to have a different perspective. Obviously, I've called on you a few times when, just to get the bond we recreated in college is unbreakable.
Yeah.
Some of those things that we did, and it's amazing how quickly, you come back and it's it's all right there. It's man, you just want to go back in that. For me at least, go back in that dorm and hang out for a little while.
Yeah. And so you asked me if I wanted to be a roommate.
Did I?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I remember, and I was kind of nervous. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, you might think it's funny because I was a little intimidated by your level of partying.
Huh.
Because I mean, I don't want to get you in trouble, but you smoked weed freshman year. I did not.
Right.
And I had never smoked weed, and I knew that you did, and it made me kind of nervous because I was kind of like not a drug guy. And like, oh God. And we lived on the 4th floor. Like we got the room on the 4th floor. We knew that? Did we know that?
Well,
already?
we chose that. I mean,
yeah, we chose it
because you're willing to sacrifice like the fact that the 4th floor was the party floor.
It was a very clear path in the road when you asked me to be your roommate and go live on the 4th floor. And the 4th floor is the party floor where everybody does late night parties every single weekend. And we had been partying there while we were rushing. And I was like, oh, shit. Like, I was like, I still had that I'm not going to be the party guy, like a little bit of that voice in my head. But I knew that if I agreed to be your roommate, that little voice was going to go away. And it did. Yeah. And then I became more of a party guy than you.
The real self came out. You came out of your nutshell.
I don't know.
You came out like, wow, look at this. Amazing. You blossomed into.
I would say, yeah, the dark side came out.
Well, yeah, that fourth, so that sophomore year, I didn't think of this, but when they had parents' weekend, so my brother obviously was a senior. I was a sophomore. So my grandma came, and I don't know if that's the year your parents came and we went. That was our senior year. But at any rate, my grandma was there. They went up to the 4th floor to see my room, and I had a giant marijuana leaf poster, like above my bed.
Oh, I remember that.
And I had I didn't think of anything of it,
Yeah.
And my mom was like, "Oh my God, Patrick, what are you doing?" Yeah. And so, then they had the, trying to hide some of that stuff over time, and finally just gave up. But then the junior year, I didn't know that. That's really funny. Well, I do know that some people thought I was already a brother because of my involvement in the underground freshman year.
What was your involvement?
Well, I just lived next door, so I was there every day.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it was run by Sigma Chi guys, so I was friendly. Like I knew everybody during Rush, and
you were very like confident at Brown and knew like you weren't in there with like a big clique of athletes like a lot of our friends were. You were kind of like solo in our Rush class, right? You didn't like come in with the best friend to go rush with.
Right.
And most people did, but I did not. So we both had that in common. But you were like worldly Brown University freshman, and I was still like, where am I, man? And and you did kind of take me under your wing, and while I was a little intimidated by just knowing what we were getting into, because it was this choice that was being made, like, oh God, like I guess I'll go do this. And then I again with passion and enthurism.
Yeah, you went all in.
I'm gonna go all in.
Yeah. There's no half-ass in it.
We did.
Well, that's fall, spring semester, sophomore year up there on the 4th floor was my worst semester academically. I got 3 C's and dropped a class.
Which year?
That sophomore year when we were on the 4th floor.
Oh yeah. They were all questionable for me.
Yeah, but I survived. We got through that.
But it was fun, and then we were roommates again.
Yeah,
and everyone like picked singles their junior year, and we again chose to room together. We moved off the 4th floor to the 1st floor, and may as well have been the 4th floor. And we just did it all over again. And then we moved, and we were housemates. Yeah, senior year. And
well, real quickly, that junior year, you were the Rush chair. Mm-hmm. So that spring semester, again, a crazy semester, but
you were president, right?
Yeah. Well, I was president in the fall so I was not president in the spring when we were doing the rushing, because you pledged in the fall, but that year, that spring semester where we hosted almost daily.
Pull your mic off your chin. I think it's scraping. There you go. Yeah.
Almost daily, a few people here and there, but you recruited 42 pledges, like that broke the world record of.
I think the average pledge class was like 20-ish.
Yeah.
Maybe. And then even in the teens. And then, yeah, I crushed it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it still stands today, I believe.
Oh my God, yeah, it's got to. I mean, we were definitely a good team and all that, but I just remember like the other part too of not only, you're a big dude and I'm tall and whatever it is, but we also had that upright base of yours that was taking up half the room.
Well, we would have rush events, and then I would like grab like a few guys and like take them out of the rush event because you couldn't drink at rush events.
Yeah.
And say, come back to my room. We're right down the hallway on the corner. And then I'd sit them down, like bust the bong out, have all kinds of alcohol in there. And then I'd talk to them like, this is going to be the best decision that you've ever made in your life. It's going to change,
That's mental, right? You got to convince
I was just like, I'm going to bring them to the room. I'm going to close them. And I would. And I just, I closed them all. And then if there was anyone on the fence, like, we need to get together. Like I did a lot of sales pitches, and I've always loved that. That's been my thing. Is I love just like persuasion and selling something I really believe in, right? Because at that stage, I had made already unbreakable bonds with these friends. It changed Brown from a place that gave me anxiety that I hated being there and wanted to leave to like one of the best experiences of my entire life, which is saying a lot. And so I was selling something that I believed in and that I loved. And if I'm doing that, then I found in life, like I'm really good at doing that. That's my superpower. Yeah. One of them,
Right. Well, we, that year that's also the year I put the knife in my hand, or that semester.
Junior year?
Yeah, junior spring.
That kind of changed you. So
a little, I guess, yeah.
You had two things happen at the end of college, because we were like riding high, and then we went on a trip to Richmond, Virginia, and you tell the story.
So we were out. The Richmond has this ring dance. My sister was down there. Tucker, he was invited to go to this dance, and so we went. Craig Powell drove a little road trip. And, we were not the most well-behaved on the way down and had a blast driving down there. But when we got there, we didn't know anybody, and other than my sister, but they were off doing and so we ended up just partying all the way through the night and ended up some guy's house, and it was like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I was hungry, and I love cooking. So I was like, I'm going to cook. So, we just got some buffalo burgers. They're in the freezer. So I went in the freezer, pulled out the, stack of these burgers frozen together, and I grabbed a 12-inch butcher knife and tried to pry them apart, and slipped right through.
Knife went right through your hand.
Came out about 6 or 8 inches outside the other side. And I was like, oh boy, I didn't feel it. I just saw the blood coming out, and I pulled it out. I was like, came inside. I was like, guys, we got to go to the hospital. And they're like, why? And then I let go of it and started squirting out.
You know what I just did here? See that little wall there?
Yeah.
The down wall by the closet?
Yeah.
It has this like popcorn plaster on the top of it. And I took my shirt off earlier, and
I see that.
when I got home from the walk, and I ripped the skin off of my knuckles.
Oh, that's the worst.
And they're just pouring blood out of my knuckles, and it looks like I got in a fight now at the reunion. Yeah. And I was sober, of course, last night, and went home at 10:30 and got shit from everybody. But now it looks like I was brawling.
Yeah, so we ended up going, we're stopping at my house on the way home in Pennsylvania. And that Christmas break.
Yeah, we stopped at your house.
Yeah, that Christmas break was tough.
And we were always planning to stop by your house.
And have lunch and then go back to Providence.
Not spend the night, though.
Not spend the night.
Okay. But then you had to go to the hospital, and you had to like a cast on your arm or whatever, or like a wrapped arm.
So we end up, over that winter break, that junior year, I was having some anxiety issues, and my parents were like, hey, you should go check this place out. And my sister took me there, and it turned out it was actually a drug and alcohol rehab center. And I don't know what was really intended to happen there, but
When was this?
This is junior winter break.
Okay, so this is
Before the knife in the
spring knife incident.
And the craziness that ensued of the that room and rush chair and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So you had visited a treatment center,
not knowing that's what it was.
Did they check you in?
Well, no. So what happened? This is like the initial consult, and so I sit down like, so why are you here? I'm like, I'm a little nervous. I get nervous around this girl I like, blah blah blah. And they're like, oh, okay. Well, why are you here? And I was like, well, isn't that what you do? She's like, no, we're a drug and alcohol rehab center. I'm like, what the, And she's like, well, clearly your family cares about you, and why don't you just stay and go through the motions here? It's confidential, so whatever. So starts the questioning, like, so how often do you drink? I'm like, well, every day except Sundays, unless the water polo team has off, and then they ask me and we go out, so, well, how much do you drink when you go out? I'm like, well, until you get drunk. I'm like, well, how many's that? Well, some nights it's 4, sometimes it's 20. It really depends when I start, what I've had to eat. She's writing all this stuff down. Like, when do you do any drugs or smoke any weed? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, when do you do that? Well, I was like, when I wake up around 10 or 11, then, maybe once in the afternoon, then we get home from the bars. Okay, writing all this stuff, and you can imagine where this is going, right? And so at the end of it, she's like, well, do you know what my recommendation is for you? And she's like, I was like, yeah, what is it? She's like, well, I recommend you go to a 6-month intensive inpatient care helping the Poconos. And I'm like, if you think I'm bad, I can take you a bus full of other guys and we can all just do this together.
This is normal.
I'm like, I'm okay. Like, I'm surviving. Like, I'm in school. Like, I got a B.
There's 50 Ivy Leaguers living in a house and they all do the same thing.
And I'm going to class. I'm like president, things
president
like
of your fraternity.
Yeah, like, come on, like nothing's bad. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And so I got home and my mom was a mess. And here they told her what the diagnosis was, which was I had a problem. And I recognized at the moment that I do have a problem, and I still do. My alcoholism is related to not being able to stop when I start. Is I just go hard and that energy that comes from that, and I just fuels on itself, and then I don't remember stuff or whatever it comes. And then anxiety happens as a result on the next day.
And I remember you having anxiety. You were like the first person that I ever met that had anxiety and vocalized it and said, I have anxiety. And you'd get nervous around girls. Mm-hmm. You would throw up sometimes. Yeah. Not from alcohol, from anxiety. Mm-hmm. And maybe it was from anxiety created by alcohol, but what are your thoughts on that? Did you have anxiety before you started drinking?
Yeah, it really was purely related to if there was somebody I liked or I felt a connection to, then my whole insides changed. And it's a really bizarre, weird feeling. So Mel Robbins says it very eloquently, excitement and anxiety are the same symptoms. It's how you interpret them.
Oh.
Sweaty palms, heart palpitations, things you get anxious, Anxiety is that same feeling, but if you look at it like when you get excited, similar, almost identical symptom. And I think somehow in all of this, my brain decided that those symptoms were not good and led them to be scared. And in therapy in high school was that one of the ideas was that with my mom having breast cancer and she almost dying and kind of not being around a lot when I was really little, I just had this fear of losing the person I love the most. And specifically a woman. Also that's related to friends, like being afraid of losing a friend or whatever it may be. And so that would come and go. And so if I could go out to a bar, meet someone and go home and that would be fine. But the moment I started a connection, then I would get nervous and nothing could get rid of it. So drinking didn't make it easier. So that there was a girl that I was interested in, and I was talking to my parents about that prior to coming home for winter break. And they interpreted that to be more on the alcohol side.
Yeah.
Which I don't blame them. And I still think it was the right thing to do. However, at the time, so I got home and here you go.
Were you mad at them?
Yeah, I was very mad. that
I can picture
sort of
you being mad.
tricky, it felt more like,
What the hell?
yeah, just tell me, and I know I probably would have denied it, just like that's what you do. But I left. I went back to Brown. And I didn't, when I put the knife in my hand, we came back. We were doing gravity bong hits like after I did it, and then what happened in all of this is I had the Ford Taurus station wagon, this beat up car with no hubcaps, the doors didn't close right, and that was what we drove around. And
we were in Craig's car this trip, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Craig calls him in the morning, like, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Freer, sorry, we're here. We're going to be a little late. Your son has to go into surgery. He had an accident last night, And so everything's, he's going to be okay, but, he put a knife in his hand, that kind of thing. Oh, my God.
He was fine. He just...
And then my mom gets on the phone, and she's just like, and she was the lovingest person. I always had my basic needs met with her,
Yeah.
I always felt I mattered, and that was never an issue. And so she said, obviously, so sorry, blah, blah, blah. She's like, if this makes you feel any better, we have a brand new Jeep Cherokee waiting for you in the driveway. And that moment, I lost it. Where I was like, obviously knowing that, yeah, I have a problem. I have a big problem, and it's not that I don't know what functioning alcoholic. I never really researched it, but the idea that I couldn't stop, and owning that in a way to not let that get in the way of my family relationship, and that was a big moment for me. So
because you turned it way down after the knife.
Well, I don't think I did that. I think I just understood.
There was a difference.
I mean, maybe I didn't black out as much as I used to. I think maybe that was it. My memory isn't that I changed dramatically, but there was a recognition.
There was a seriousness about you that came out of that incident.
Well, you would know me better than I know myself. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
What you experienced is...
I feel like I experienced that.
And that would make sense to me.
Yeah. And then I went the opposite direction. You were mindful of this.
Yeah. That's a good way to look at it.
And I was not. No, and kind of in thinking about our friendship, we were that was a turning point, because I think you became mindful and conscious about this is a problem. It's not like you did go to rehab and you got sober or something like that, but you were mindful. And I think that goes a long fucking way in the world of drinking and drugs. You don't have to always just quit, but being mindful when you're not mindful and you're around someone who is mindful, that's annoying for an addict. And I kind of experienced that probably. And it's not something that I dwell on for the last 25 years, but since we're talking about it now, I remember. And then into senior year, I remember that whole vibe. It was just, our house was kind of a house divided a little bit.
Oh, Barn Street?
Yeah.
Yeah. I also felt more like a parent.
Yeah. You took on a parent role that you didn't ever have until all of this went down. And I didn't really understand that at all until just this moment that you're explaining all of this. Yeah. And you were because you stayed there all summer. So you'd been living in the house, and then we all showed up, and you had rules and shit.
Well, I did the bill. I paid all the utility. I did all that stuff, and yeah. So.
Oh, and you're just dealing with the scum of the earth.
Or fuck ups,
Poor fucking people that are you pay so you...
Well, I think I stopped. I didn't pay the electric bill or something just to prove to... What was it?
The phone bill.
Oh, okay.
You're I'm not going to pay the phone bill because you fuckers won't pay for it. And Kobe and I we're such little shits. We just went to... and bought our first cell phones.
Yeah.
And that was the first cell phone I ever got. And then we just came back we don't need the phone bill. You were trying to teach us a lesson. We got cell phones now. No worries. And... Oh man. And then, I mean, that year was fucking utter chaos.
We were all
Senior
over the
year.
place.
Oh my God. And then, should we get into that story?
Sure.
Senior year.
Yeah. What story?
The Providence cops.
Oh yeah. So
Because that's like the triple crown of becoming mindful.
Yeah.
About,
so then
and that was,
fast forward to April 19th, we decide to have a 420 party at Barn Street, and the whole group. Well, it got broken up by the cops at like 10:30 or something, and so everybody went home, and then we stayed up, and at 4:20, Tucker, myself,
AM?
yeah, 4:20 a.m.
I was
420.
asleep.
Yeah, most people were asleep. There was 3 of us, and we were playing a Stony Lighter game, try to catch it, and all of a sudden the fucking door opens up, and it's like, "What are you guys doing?" Blah blah blah. And here it's 2 police officers, and we're just like, "Holy crap!" And then they're like, "Whose is this?" And I took the sword. I was like, "It's all mine." And they're like, "No, it's gotta be." I was like, "No, it's all mine." And they're like, "You're coming with us." And I was like, "What?" Like, "Yeah, we're going." So I was like, "Well, let me go upstairs and get changed." And so I didn't realize this, but he followed me up there. And, in all that, my life sort of flashed in my eyes, because what they could have found would have been really bad. And
which was?
I won't disclose what that is, but
okay.
It wasn't good.
Yeah.
And, I mean, today it's not bad at all.
Right.
But at the time, it wasn't bad. And then...
statute of limitations passed.
Well, so anyways, I got down, they put me in the squad car and spent the night in jail. Woke up the next morning, got in the van with like 10 other degenerates like me, and was there waiting in line to get called up. And I was like, do I get an attorney? Like, I need to talk to someone. And finally a public defender came out and said, "Hey, just plead no contest." So got up there and said no contest. Guy strikes the hammer, like, "All right, 60 hours community service, blah, blah, blah." And Jed picked me up, got home. Willa came over. And I'm just like, holy shit, what just happened? And I'm 2 weeks out from graduating, or whatever, 3 or 4 weeks out from graduating. And I just like, man, I just totally could have ruined my life. And I was so unaware of the consequences, felt so safe with everybody and so smart, and that pretty much ended my marijuana experience.
Yeah.
That pretty much kiboshed that. And I began consciously and subconsciously avoiding it.
Yeah.
Or moving away from it.
Yeah.
And as a result, that
did that carry with you through adult life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I have to be in a very safe place to enjoy it. Otherwise, it does.
It
give me
triggers
anxiety.
you. You have
yeah,
PTSD.
it makes me think about police, and it really does. I think I'm going to get arrested. Even when I get pulled over with the 3 kids in the car, I start getting panicky. Like, oh my God, what are they going to find? But I don't have anything. But that did influence our friendships, because there was kind of, in our fraternity, there was like the ones that did and the ones that didn't, kind of thing. And so I began to become more friends with the ones that didn't, and which led to more drinking, which wasn't good.
Yeah. I think that I had like a similar scare with weed when I was playing in Slick 57. And we were driving down the highway, and Pedigo was rolling a joint in the front seat. And then I was driving fine, like not speeding. It was in the middle of the day. Everything was fine. And sirens went on. And I mean, I knew I didn't do anything wrong. So I'm like, why am I getting pulled over? And they said, "Do you know why we pulled you over?" And I was like, "No." They're like, "Well, you were in the passing lane and not passing." I was like, "Well, I was going to pass, and then I saw you there, and I would have had to speed to pass, so I didn't speed, And I had hit the joint.
Yeah.
And turns out somebody saw him rolling the joint and called the cops on the interstate and said these guys are rolling a joint in their car, in their van. We're driving a van with music equipment in it. We only had the one joint because we got it from this other band we were touring with. So someone ate the joint when we got pulled over. But I was still high, and I had to get out and do a field sobriety test, which I passed. I wasn't like super high. I took like a hit off a joint, you know. I was playing music for a living. I was very professional by that stage of my life. But I'm still stoned. And John Pedigo, our guitar player who was rolling the joint, is wearing flip-flops, and I'm trying to like talk to the officer and be serious, and he's standing in a fire ant bed. He starts fucking jumping around and swatting fire ants off of him, and the officer's like, "Son, what are you doing?" And I was like dying, laughing on the inside, but just like holding it together so hard. And then they like did a full body cavity search. No, they searched the car though, like pulled out all of our equipment. They searched the whole car. They were so sure they were gonna find a brick in there or something, and there were just like stems and seeds. Okay. And they let us go. Nice. And with a warning, thank God. But gosh, that was so scary. And I don't know. After I stopped touring, weed stopped working on me, and then it just like the last time I smoked it, it's like. It just makes me, I guess for some people it chills them out, and maybe it did that to me in college, but now it does the opposite. Like it makes me worry. I'm like, do I have cancer right now? Or what is this person thinking about me right now? Blah, blah, blah. And like, I get in my head. It's like intentional anxiety. And I finally like golf, just quit. And
the nice thing with gummies now, you can sort of dial in that feeling.
I don't touch anything.
But 100%, to be in a safe, I must be in a safe place to even consider it.
Yep. And you fell in love. Yeah. At the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. So that
was after the incident.
That we call that as the first day of our official dating.
Was the 420 party?
Well, the day she came after I got out of jail, or I got out of jail and she came and.
That was your first date? Was the date you got out of jail?
We had been dating, but the official monogamous, or whatever you want to call it, exclusive. Yeah. So that was sort of the point at which we said, hey, this is kind of, or at least I did. I was like, this is special, and she did too. And we at that point I'd already planned to go to Montana. My job was going to be a fishing guide, and a lot of that had to do with the idea of cleaning up, of being able to go to a new place, do something I love, not worry about money, even though I like me. I don't care. Like I was going to make money doing anything, but making money in fly fishing sounds great. But the idea of being able, if we go back to the question of how often do you drink, that it was asked to me in that first set, or that one session. And I said, well, every day when people ask me, basically. And I was asked every day. And my identity became that. Now,
you were always the guy that people could go to that's ready to go.
Yeah, and when you asked, when someone would ask, I would feel bad saying no. I couldn't say no.
And you had a big problem in that I had morphed into the guy that always asked people to go drink. And I was...
Well, we still, we asked each other. I mean, it wasn't...
But I feel like I was... This carried on through my adult life is what I think. And we were talking about it when I quit drinking. When I was 37, none of my friends said, come on, aren't you going to drink? All my friends were like, thank God, because I was the one, hey... Let's go drink. Let's go have lunch on a Tuesday at Mi Casina and drink margaritas. And I developed that in college that I carried on with me everywhere, where I was always not only down, but I wanted it. I needed it. Yeah, I was the instigator.
Yeah, and I wanted to be around people, and I enjoyed it too. So it wasn't, it was absolutely starting Thursday, it was going down until Sunday. And then if someone wanted to go out, they would come into our room like, hey, break out the bong, break this out. And before you know it, it's 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And you and I were both that way. So Montana was good in the standpoint that I could form a new identity. And, if we're at a bar or whatever, I could say no, and no one would know any different.
Yeah, it was the new version of you.
Yeah, like I could choose that.
Yeah.
And not that it was easy to do, because I still wanted to do that, but also realized like part of what I needed to do, which was to clean up a little bit, like just take pleasure and joy out of other things that are happening. And Willa was a big part of that. She did drive out with me, and then ended up leaving Brown for a little bit and living with me there. And it was a wonderful experience being out there.
Did she live with you the first semester of the next year for her? Or?
No, she came out for a couple weeks in the summer, and then she went back to school. And then that spring semester, she started, went for a couple days and was like, I need to go. And it wasn't because, I want to believe she was fully in love with me. I'm sure she was, but there was other, we all struggle with our own things. And so it wasn't just to be with me. She needed also to get away. She needed
to go change her identity a little bit.
Yeah, she had to, just needed a break.
How wild is that, Willa leaving Brown second semester of sophomore year? Like, I don't know, many people, Tucker Cordy left freshman year, right?
Yeah.
Or sophomore year, I guess.
Right.
Whenever he did. And he went to LA and worked on Armageddon, I remember. And that's such a baller move to leave college and then come back and finish.
And Brown makes it so easy. They just send you a note like, are you coming back?
Yeah.
Yes, no, maybe. And you just take maybe. And then they send you a note next year.
I was way too scared of my father to do that.
Yeah. Well, and I, give credit to her family for supporting that decision. And, hard not to look at the lens of like, she's following some guy who is a fishing guide, dropping out of an Ivy League school. Slightly worse nightmare for, my daughter, Beatrice. Like, obviously we would support it because we went through the experience. But if I put myself in somebody else's shoes, like your dad's,
yeah,
like, I don't think this is the right decision because you've spent so much effort to get into this school. And so from all of that is this great, wonderful learning experience, that it worked. I was able to
rein it in.
Yeah, rein it in and understand myself better. And she was able to do the same thing and head back to school. And then when that happened, it was my turn to sort of say, all right, it's time to grow up a little bit. What do I want to do and where do I want to do it? And so in that conversation was my parents again, saying like, well, real estate there, you could do this, you could do that. And I just didn't. And then they said, you can come work for us in insurance business. And that was attractive only from the standpoint that it was closer to Willa. And, I was like, well, I'm not going to live at home. I need to be able to travel, and they gave me a taste of what the insurance business can be as an owner. And it brought me closer to her. And so that's how I started when she went back to school, is when I started the insurance business. I started in the insurance business selling insurance.
For your family's insurance business?
Yeah.
How did that start, the business?
The insurance business started in 1860 by like a great uncle. And my great-grandfather, Strickler, which is my mom's side, bought the agency. And then my grandfather ran it, and then my dad took over. And then I joined him in 2002.
Was your dad working there, and that's how you met your mom?
No, my dad's from Denver, Colorado. My mom left Lebanon after college and moved out to Denver for a couple of years. She met him, and then they moved back when it was time for them to do the same thing.
And then her dad's like, "Come work with me, son. I want my daughter here in Lebanon with me."
Yeah, that was just the right.
Is that how he talked?
Path. Supposedly my dad said they didn't get along great at certain aspects of time, but
I bet.
Yeah, but my dad's my best friend too, and we had a great time being together. It was a struggle, that transition, that first 6 months. I went from the coolest job in the world to the least coolest job in the world. Insurance is not sexy. People hate it.
The money's sexy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the business is amazing if you get it when you get inside it.
What do you make your first year out of college working a job like in insurance?
Well, sales is a book of business, right? So that takes time.
Yeah.
In the underwriting world, like insurance is a very well-paying job or industry or whatever it is.
Is this corporate insurance or personal insurance?
I personally was doing commercial insurance.
Okay.
Our agency is everything, so it does all of that. But I specialize in commercial insurance, and premium. It's all based on premium because it's commission. So, like what you do in Dallas, you have a lot more zeros behind the stuff that we do in Lebanon. Like just the cost of land and things are so much more in Dallas than they are in Lebanon. So it's the same amount of work and same concept, but you're getting paid 10 times more. Now there's way more competition because the numbers are higher, but you hit something, it's a big number. And so, for me, what's beautiful about insurance and that commercial is you don't have to sell it every year. Is you develop the relationship with the owner or the person in charge or whatever, and you develop this bond, and that's something that
provide them with good service and a good relationship.
Yeah, and that's something I thrive in.
Yeah.
That's where I excel, and meeting new people and developing connections, and then all my experiences with you and with everybody at school and all these places I've been, to be able to have some connection with anybody.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my roommate's from Dallas and he's in the rockabilly. Like you're able to pick these little pieces off, and so, you can quickly make $100,000 in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was then. Now premiums are higher.
Yeah.
But it's work. And so that the frustration.
But first year back then was like what?
I got paid $30,000. He gave me $30,000 for salary, and I got 50% of anything I sold.
Okay. That's about the same I got for right out of college leasing office space. So I got $35K plus some bonus on deals that I got done.
But I will say, walking into a meeting with my Brown alumni or Brown folder, 110% made me more successful. Just that. When people are like, oh, you went to Brown? And I didn't realize, they say that, but I didn't realize that so many people in our town would know that. And it worked.
It's funny for me, I felt the opposite when I was starting out, because I felt like there's so many people in Texas that are hardcore UT, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, and not very many people have heard of Brown. It's not a known institution in the state of Texas. It's like, where'd you go? SMU, UT, A&M, TCU? We have all these great colleges in Texas where the majority of my competitors went to school, and the majority of the prospects I was calling on in Dallas. So I always kind of like, Brown's it's just not great for being a commercial real estate broker in Dallas. But I've found now, I kind of like never leaned on it in my sales. I still don't. I never did, because I felt like it was worthless at first. So I never brought it up. It's on LinkedIn, but I never mention it unless it comes up, but it's not like a big thing. But I've found that people mention it sometimes, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess like that does help.
Oh, they see that on
helps
the LinkedIn.
Me. Yeah, they see 100%. It on the LinkedIn, and
they don't know Brown.
It goes a long way.
Yeah, they don't know the experience that we had inside the school, which was.
Well, I'm very upfront. If someone ever brings it up, you must be really smart. You went to Brown, like.
Well, and that's what we talked
no.
about today, right? Is like, we are smart, like not to toot our own horns, but the reality is like we have a different kind of smart, and so. What for me, it's talking to all business owners, and the reality is they know, because they're trying to get their kids in schools. Like they, depending on who you're talking to, would more likely know about that school than not. And that, so the idea of rejection, it was hard at the beginning because, people say no. Yeah, they have existing relationships and things like that. So it struggled. And then one day I had a friend I was introduced to by my dad, who's his friend's son came back to work in the car business. They had a car dealership, and the two of us joined a young professional group. He's 10 years older than me, but we're both unmarried. And we went to this like mixer, and we were talking to these two girls, and he started laughing. And I'm like, what's so funny? He's like, hey, girls, do you have any idea who you're talking to right now? And they looked at us and looked at him. They're like, no, who are you talking to? He's like, you're talking to the scum of the earth. An insurance guy, insurance salesman, and a used car salesman all at the same time. Like, man, you just hit the low point of your lives, you know, and everybody laughed. And I took that as a way to stop taking this so seriously, you know, stop taking myself, like, why am I hard on myself in this? Like, my dad would kept trying to tell me, you know, without insurance, the economy stops. You know, we're a vital piece of the world. And it does provide, even though people don't like it, it's a necessity. And I began to lean into that. And I became more confident in what I was selling.
Yeah.
You know, and then that's when the light switch happened. And
that's the key to sales.
Yeah.
Is like, and it took me a while in real estate. Like it does, I mean, not everybody. I know just sales titans who get it right off the bat and they have no problem selling, but I couldn't sell what I do until I had done it enough to know that I was actually good at it. And I didn't believe that for several years at the beginning of my career. And then, yeah, but when that switch flips.
And so much of sales is like connection and trust. And you're so good at that. You know, I feel like we both are good at that. And why so many of our friends reach out to you to talk about their problems. And yeah.
And then I think then once the light switch flips up and you start believing in what you're selling, then you get the positive mental attitude that comes with that. And like in fishing again, then you're just like,
confidence.
Yeah. And I mean, then you know, like, oh, they've got to hire me. They need me. They've got to, like, why wouldn't they hire me? And then then that starts happening. And that's wild how that works.
Yeah. Believing you're the smartest guy in the room. In the thing that so like in commercial insurance, that's what I believe. I believe if I were up on a stage and they're asking me questions, I'd win. And that is good. And so, because I know in the back end of things, I'm providing the best thing that they can get.
I think one part of being in that position is to always recognize that I need to keep getting better too.
Yeah.
Do you consciously like focus on constant, never-ending improvement of your processes and what you're doing and how you're servicing your customers?
we have these things called Comp 365. It's the 5 pillars, and one of those is knowledge. And in our industry, knowledge, I tell everybody who starts, like, knowledge is power. And when you know more than anybody else, they can't. I mean, what can they do, right? And so much of insurance is understanding what's in this thing that you're buying. Most people don't understand it. And so when you're having those conversations, either with clients or with underwriters, you can catch them on these things. And so insurance doesn't change fast. You know, as rules, it has, if you want to, like the fires in the Palisades, that will affect how things are being rebuilt in the future, but it takes a while to get that through codes and things like that. But policies change and things change. And so if you're not paying attention to what's new, someone's going to come in and take it from you because you were lazy.
Yeah.
And so our office, like our thing is, that's knowledge is power. And that's one of our core values. And everybody has an education goal, including me. And that is I'm the CIC, or, it's one of those things. And every year you got to take these certain classes for that. But to constantly, like, court cases affect insurance policies. And so if you're not aware of what's going on, you can totally mess something up. And when you mess it up with a business, it's got huge ramifications, millions of dollars, or a business could fold for a mistake that you made. No one's going to get hurt. Like, I'm not going to hurt somebody because I got something wrong in a policy, forgot to do something to it. It's just going to have a huge financial impact, which then ultimately affects everybody who works there.
Yeah. So now you've been doing that for
23 years.
23 years.
Yeah.
Willa moved to Lebanon.
Mm-hmm.
You have 4 kids.
4 kids.
And you opened a brewery.
Yeah.
And you sold it.
Yeah. Yeah. In all of the, mess of things, I think, when you look back, I was told, when you're between the ages of like 32 30 and 50 or something like that. You know, you're, as a man, the instinct or genetic disposition is to hoard, is to gather, build, grow, so that when you hit that time, you have enough to then get through the end of your life and make your family's protected and everybody's going to be okay. And in that growth or in that mindset, you know, you lose a little bit of sight into the now. You know, so there were opportunity, you know, you see opportunity, and as an entrepreneur, like, you want to grab that opportunity and grab it and grab this one and grab that one. And so we, you know, insurance business was thriving. We had 2 kids, and then, you know, Willa, through her mom, got me a beer making kit, and it's like, it was amazing. And having come from Montana, where the craft beer scene was great, and in our town there was none, and we missed that. We got together as a family and said, should we or shouldn't we do this? And we decided to do it. And we opened the brewery. And then by the time that was 2013, then we had a new house. We had 2 more kids. We started investing in real estate, you know, and, you know, it just became too much. Everything was suffering. I was suffering. The businesses were suffering. You know, our relationships were suffering. And, you know, through that experience, everything's got a silver lining, but you know, my back went bad and ended up going through all these different medical type things to figure that out until I ran into Dr. John Sarno's book, Healing Back Pain and the Idea of the Mindbody. And I was able to take a deeper dive into that side of things and realize what was going on in my life and began to peel away those layers. So eventually, you know, slowing down a little bit and realizing, like, hey, some of these things have to go. And some of that was also encouragement with Willa. You know, obviously she's raising these 4 kids and and I'm all over the place, and, you know, she's all over the place. So that can get tricky. But ultimately, when you look at, you see what does that mean for us, and you know, that you time is what it is. You know, you only have so much of it, and that you need to begin making those priorities. And so we started selling things, and the brewery being one of them, and that was a wonderful thing. Getting that off our plate. But I learned a lot from that experience. 1, starting a business from scratch. 2, getting investments. 3, selling a business, which is so hard. And being regulated. You know, like, I'm a Democrat, but, you know, there's a lot of noise about regulation, too much, too little, whatever it may be. But in the alcohol space, you know, you've got 5 or 6 regulators on your butt all day long. And that is a struggle to get through. And so now I appreciate those conversations more. I appreciate businesses that are manufacturing. You know, insurance can provide money, but it doesn't provide stress relief. You know, when your equipment goes down and nothing's happening, money doesn't make you feel better.
Yeah.
Right? And that stress is there. When manufacturing is 24 hours a day, the restaurant business, you know, starts going when insurance shuts off. You know, 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, that's when things are rocking and rolling, and, you know, nearly impossible to be present everywhere when that's happening.
Yeah.
And so, you know, learning to be empathetic now, it made me a better insurance person from that experience, like understanding the real pain that when things happen.
Being a business owner.
Yeah. And the lifestyles that people choose. But it also made me appreciate just what a wonderful business insurance is.
Yeah.
Again, not sexy, but it's a necessity, and it'll last through so many bad points of the world. Like, you know, COVID, obviously, we weren't affected at all. You know, I mean, there's a little bit, you know, premiums are what they are based on sales and stuff. And if your restaurant has less sales, and there's less premium. But
some, like, bars in Texas got hammered after COVID.
Yeah.
Their insurance went just like tripled or something. And
well, hotels, similar. Again, like the beauty of insurance, right? Like, all of a sudden there's these things that were unexpected, but the policy covers. now the insurance company's paid all this money and the policies haven't changed. It still covers it, so they need to raise the rates to cover the exposure. And, that's an unintended benefit of the insurance business from my side as a broker who sells the policy.
Yeah.
Because I have no control over that. I don't set the rate. I simply have to communicate what's happening and try to find the best option for that. And the premium doubles, I make twice as much.
Yeah.
But it makes working in that really difficult. It's not fun to say, I love going in and be like, hey, your rates went down this year because you didn't have a claim, but that just never happens, rarely happens.
Yeah.
So, you have to also get a little thick-skinned, knowing the reason without rate increase, the industry would fold. And it has to adjust. Premiums have to adjust to reflect the claims, things that are actually happening.
Yeah. It seems like there should be a better way. Don't you think?
Well, you'd think if there was, Silicon Valley would be all over it, right?
Yeah.
But they can't. They all fail. They try to model it, but ultimately it's a people touching kind of business.
Yeah.
There's a lot of trust involved. Not every car dealer is the same. Not every house is the same. And you can set a model to say, this is what we want. But the reality is things happen. And so even in all of the capabilities of things, to this day, it's an industry that Silicon Valley has yet to conquer. You can automate buying the insurance policy, but
Right.
actually underwriting it is very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass, man. It's a good thing you're so friendly to make it easy for your customers.
Yeah.
'Cause you got to have it.
And ultimately that it that's what makes a good agency is being able to communicate what it is and
What's happening, why it's happening.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and being friendly about, you just got to take it on the chin sometimes.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
Be curious. Listen more. Talk less. I would say, I did take chances, so I wouldn't say say yes more often. I think I say yes very often. That's one of my positive qualities, I believe. Trust in yourself. Be able to harness that. When you trust in yourself and your abilities, like we talked about, confidence and things like that, just, that I know points in my life where I wasn't and what happened during that time and the times that I was and what happened during that time. And so, is a mantra, it all works out. It's very simple to say, but that would be a reminder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the biggest obstacle that you've ever had to overcome?
Man. That's a great question. I think in anxiety, for those that suffer anxiety in whatever fashion that or form that is, that chatter that exists in your mind, is being able to, it's a constant battle, a challenge to, again, the idea of trusting yourself, reminding yourself that you're a good person or you're this or you're that, and so I would say that there are times where I was good at that and there are times that I'm bad at that, but that obstacle is a constant one there. And I want to believe that in this journey, the older, with age comes wisdom, right? So the more I learn, what can I do better today than I did yesterday? And so much of that involves, being better for you, and listening, to yourself. And like we were talking last night, I was in the the band, and I'm like trying to please everybody. I'm like, well, I'm not even pleasing myself. I'm not even. And it's like, oh wait, I got to get out of here, and do that thing. So that'd be the physical one. The physical obstacle was the moment, you had the brewery, the 4 kids, and unwinding all of that, unwinding the mess that was created from all the chaos.
Yeah.
And now life is much simpler than it was. And some of that's also patience, more financial security, things that came as a result of certain things. So I'm very happy with the way being able to exit from some of those things.
Yeah.
Even though it was scary, like I didn't want to fail, felt like a failure. Investors gave me money, I gave them a lot less back. And I see all you guys out there winning, and and it's hard, for me to say that I failed. And in some respects I did, and some I didn't. But in the end, the outcome was
as we all did, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was as good as it could be.
Yeah. Have you ever had a mystical experience?
I'm a believer in the mind right now. Like going through that mind-body work. There's so much power to that. When you think about people who are amputees and they feel that phantom pain, why is that? The brain is interpreting or doing something that make it feel real. And it's not that it's fake pain necessarily. It's real because you're feeling it. And so relative to the mind, mystical experience would be more on the ghost side. And when I was growing up, there was a reoccurring dream, or real, who knows, of a farmer that would walk into my room. And my brother and I shared a room, but he'd walk into my room and he'd sit down next to me. And he'd feel the bed like sag a little bit. And he'd look at me in the eyes and he'd start tickling me. Yeah. And then and I'd be like, stop, and then he would make this crazy face and they'd vanish, disappear. And that would happen. It didn't happen a lot, maybe like 5 or 6 times. And I was.
Did he ever tickle your brother?
Well, so fast forward one night, and somehow Jenny and I were telling ghost stories, or stories of the house, and she told a story where she saw a farmer in the mirror a couple times. And we both looked at each other like, holy shit. It was like you and I in this paper, like, we both failed the first paper.
Yeah.
And we're like, you never told me that. I was like, you never told me that. And it was almost the same description of the image that we saw. And so if that's what mystical is,
yeah.
I'd never had any sort of religious type of mystical experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a pretty intense moment when we both looked at each other and were like, holy crap, maybe that was real.
That's wild.
Yeah.
But Peter never saw it?
Peter never saw it.
Yeah. What's your favorite restaurant?
Favorite restaurant? Oh boy. I am not a picky eater. So I'll do twofold. If I were to say, my favorite foods are mashed potatoes and pizza.
Together?
You can do it together, but
we just had some pizza for
Yeah.
dinner, probably.
Little
Cecilia's.
snack.
Yeah, a little snack, afternoon's pre-podcast snack.
Yeah. Delicious
What a
stuff,
great
Chris.
pizza that is.
Yeah, brings it all back, man.
Cecilia's, Providence, Rhode Island. This episode is brought to you by Cecilia's, Providence, Rhode Island. 401-273-9222. Call them today.
How you doing? There's a pizza place in town called Greek Town, and they deliver, and I love that. And favorite restaurant? Oh man, that's a tough one. Having traveled a lot, there's been a few good ones. We were in the Dolomites. I remember specifically being in Dolomites, and we did this hike up to one of these refugios, and you're overlooking the Dolomites. You're eating this Michelin star food. It was delicious and amazing. I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah.
But that's one that sticks out.
Yeah. Thanks for remembering the name for the podcast. What's your favorite vacation destination?
Oh, man. I think in general, our family, we're beach and mountain people. Willa brings the beach to the family equation, brought the mountains. Being my dad's from Denver, so we would, as a kid, go out to Denver or go out west a lot. And so when we met, we sort of combined those experiences. Her family's a coast experience, and mine's the mountain. So I think as a family, Will and I, if we had to choose, I would think she would say go into a mountain town where you can hike and run and fish and drink good beer and have some yummy food.
What's your go-to mountain town these days?
Well, we have a special thing for Whitefish, Montana, which is where we lived.
Yeah.
It sort of has everything. Great little town that is sort of saloony, that has a 3-block street that still has old school bars and, some rough around the edges kind of thing. Has a ski area not too far away. The airport's close. The fishing's not the best, but there's plenty to do there. Glacier is down the street, Glacier National Park. And so that's right now our favorite. We just like exploring. And I think in the, current ideas, in the future is find that town, a little outside of town where you're on a river or creek or something that you can fish, and the mountain's not too far away, and wake up in the morning on the porch with a cup of coffee and see the creek and snow in the mountains, and be able to play in that way. On the flip side, we do love the ocean. And, her mom lives in Maine, her dad in Martha's Vineyard, and just have really, as a family, explored that. And I think, hopefully some of that stays in the family to be able to experience both of those over time. But I don't think we'd ever live on the coast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's a book that you think people should read?
I think if I were to redo my career, start over again from that, I would be a mind-body doctor. I would.
You said that today.
Yeah, I did, didn't I?
Yeah.
I would help people pursue the power of the mind in healing. Not ignore, the medical side. You got to do that and make sure you don't have cancer and all the rest of that stuff. That's really broken. But I would do that, and I do that because the book that I read that really brought it all together was The Healing Back Pain by Dr. Sarno. However, he also wrote a book called The Mindbody Prescription. And The Mindbody Prescription is a book that takes all chronic pain, not just back, but chronic pain and neurological disorders like Lyme's disease and fibromyalgia and sort of those kind of things that are really difficult to treat. And that book helps to put you in a place to say, maybe there's a different way. Maybe there is all this stuff I've been trying is not working, the desperation of your life's falling apart because of this pain or whatever it is taking over your life. And obviously the opiates, just how horrible that can be. And so in this book is just this beauty that if more people read it, when they're talking to someone about who's experiencing these things, you can offer that. Because that's what happened to me. So a sister-in-law, I was suffering.
This book.
Yeah, she read the book, and it healed me. There are some people who read the book and the next day they're fine. Migraines, all sorts of stuff, and so that would be the one I'd recommend.
That's cool. I need to read that.
Yeah, Doctor.
Never read it.
Yeah, Mind-Body Prescription.
Right on. Do you have a favorite quote?
No, I'm bad with that. Really bad with that.
Is there a charity or cause that you're passionate about?
Yeah, our YMCA, local YMCA. that
Lebanon YMCA.
Lebanon YMCA. It was, I said I worked every day after school at the daycare center, which was part of the Y. Grew up playing basketball there. Family's been a long time supporter of it. And I said to myself, if I ever won the lottery, I would build a children's center for this group because the Y, because the one we were in, we rented a space from a church. It was kind of dirty. And well, opportunity came to give money and help raise money. And so the Freer family got together and were able to help start a youth center. So there's a youth center as part of the Y called the Freer Family Youth Center, and it services youth ages 12 to 18 in the city of Lebanon, and it feeds them the gym, there's games and programming, and just keeps them off the street.
When did you do that?
That was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, 15 years ago.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah. No, it's good.
Did you build a building or buy a building?
We what ended up happening is we ended up remodeling the Y itself to expand it and redo some things so that we were able to keep. Part of it was, they were trying to figure out how to build this youth center, and then that's when I got involved. I heard about this and be like, I think we can make this happen.
Yeah.
We can make this happen. And my brother, my dad, we all just kind of got together and figured out how we could do it. And so, my office is right across the street. So I stare at it, and there's a middle school a block up the street. And that's, at 3:00, these kids are all over the place, fighting each other, screaming, just so much energy, and not that they all go there, but, it serves like 80 to 120 kids a day.
That's amazing.
Yeah. That otherwise wouldn't be fed or who knows what they'd be doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, that part. So that the YMCA is very special to me. And part of that was the reason I felt that way is because, I was sort of being bullied in high school, and I felt at home when I would go to work. I felt at home, like the love, not only were the teachers that were very happy I was there because there was a male role model kind of thing for these kids to see. And there wasn't much of that because it was a city-based program. They took care of me, and I wanted to pay that back at some point in my life. And fortunately we're able to. There's
a big shortage now, I've heard, of male role models for young children. Mm-hmm. And I heard this guy, Scott Galloway, who we've talked about a little bit this weekend. He has a great podcast, and I saw him do a keynote at a conference I was at last year speaking about that. And he said it's like basically Michael Jackson and Catholic priests ruined it for everyone. Mm-hmm. Because like men of our generation are not volunteering like to help kids out because of so many of these implications, like the Boy Scouts and like, it's just like all this, these fucked up people like ruined it for a lot of people. And, but that's something, that just kind of came on my radar, and it's interesting to think about because you did Big Brothers, right? At Brown? Oh, I did Big Brothers when I was at Brown. I no longer do it, and I just do mentorships on a more like one-off basis to mainly like young men, out of college. I would say more so than anything else, but there is a shortage of it. So it's good to know that you're building a place for people to go find.
Yeah. Someone who cares.
People that care.
Yeah. Help build resiliency, of whatever that family life is for these kids. Who knows, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, but more often where we live, it's not good. So.
Well, Freebird, I love you, brother.
Love you too, Ward.
Been a hell of a ride.
Yeah, it has.
Let's keep her rolling.
Oh, we will.
We'll be back for another episode on our 50th college reunion.
Let's do
25 years.
Sounds like a plan.
We're going to be hilarious then.
Oh, my God.
Well,
grumpy old men.
We got one more night, so let's go do it.
Yeah, let's have some fun.
How do people track you down if they want to reach out to you?
They can call me, text me, 717-926-0507, or email me, patrick@stricklerinsurance.com.
Right on, brother. Thanks for trucking on. Peace.